Hello friends and colleagues, I'm sorry that I couldn't be there in person, but I don't have to tell any of you how busy at the beginning of the school year can be, especially for teacher coaches. Since I can't be there in person, I'm sending this video clip to share my classroom experience with the Desmos Function Carnival activity. I use this activity as an introduction to a unit on representing and interpreting functions in multiple forms. I had heard about the Function Carnival from Dan Meyer's blog and decided it was a great way to start out the unit. To set the scene, my school is one-to-one with iPads, which is a great and terrible thing. In this case, it worked in our favor, as every student could manipulate their own graph and offer their own feedback. Having my own iPad, I was able to walk around the room and monitor each student's progress from the teacher center in real time and decide which graphs I wanted to highlight, in what order, and how I wanted to set the stage for the discussion. The teacher center also allowed me to see which students were struggling and which were on the right track and which were working ahead of the class. I used the Function Carnival activity with 3 of my classes: a pre-algebra class with 23 freshmen, a transitional algebra class with 12 sophomores and juniors, and an Algebra 2 class with 10 sophomores. These were my observations from all classes. The activity was very engaging for students. I didn't have to fight for their attention because they were all knee-deep in the activity. The activity was easy to use. We did no prep work. I allowed them about 10 seconds to play with the first graph before we had to take the activity seriously, and in that time, pretty much every single student figured out how to use the features. Having the graphs and the animation side by side, students were easily able to see connections and make their own connections between the features of the graph and what was happening in the animation. And last, because the graph and the animation are side by side, they were quickly and easily able to check their work and revise where necessary. Some management notes that you might want to take into account if you're going to use this in your classroom. In my pre-algebra class of 23 freshmen, I was extremely glad that I had 2 aides to help me keep struggling students and off-task students keep working. There weren't many, but man, was it nice to have Nancy and Lisa. In all classes, as is pretty typical for every activity, a couple of students were flying ahead and really leaving everybody else in the dust. A couple were just kind of scribbling to see what would happen on the animation and excitedly showing each other what was going on in their graphs. And then a couple were being very, very meticulous in placing each point, then connecting them, and making sure that their graph matched exactly. Each of these had to be addressed, and I did mostly all of that at the desk side. However, the payoff was worth the minor headaches. Some topics came up that I considered to be outside of the normal discussion for this standard, and they were very, very interesting. The first was, on the bumper car activity, the difference between a path and the distance traveled along a path, the way the 2 graphs differ, and the way the 2 concepts differ. We had a really good discussion on this. The second one on the same topic was, what if your graph isn't a function? What if it's a relation? How do the graphs of a function and relation differ? And is the graph of relation appropriate for a distance time graph? So say, for example, what if you had a graph that looked like this? What's going to happen in the situation or the animation when you have an object existing in multiple different positions at the same time? The third discussion that we had that went farther than I would have expected for a pre-algebra class was the difference between smooth curves and sharp corners. How does it look in the animation? How does it look in real life? What are some situations that would illustrate this? My personal favorite was the idea of bungee jumping for smooth curves over hopping up and down for sharp corners. As I said, this was a great activity that I really enjoyed. We got some great discussion out of it, and my students really enjoyed it. So I think I'll definitely use it again this year, and I hope you try it too. Again, I'm sorry I couldn't be there. Thank you very much for your time. Have a good day.